Most photographers feel like they need to spend thousands of dollars on camera bodies and even more on a collection of lenses to take professional photos. But here is what is crazy. The single biggest factor that separates amateur photographers from high-level professionals has, well, nothing to do with your camera gear at all. My name is Will Barron and I'm an amateur photographer like you, and I've debunked this gear myth multiple times on this channel, and I'll keep banging on about the fact that your gear isn't holding you back. But the only upgrade that you need to take to 10x to massively dramatically improve your photography, well, it's something that's actually really cheap and quick to implement, and to be honest, it can actually be quite fun. And the thing that we want to upgrade here lives between your ears. Now, I recently did a video that explained why professional photographers, they generally tend to use cheaper camera gear versus amateur photographers, but still produce better results. And loads of pros confirmed this in the comments of that video as well. So, if better, more expensive gear isn't the bottleneck to better images, then what is the bottleneck? Well, it's your photography skill set. And I can hear you typing away in the comments as I say that, right? You don't want to hear that. That's not what you wanted to hear when you clicked on this video. You probably want to spend the next 4 hours on YouTube watching a review of a new camera body. You then go, oh, friggin' hell, maybe I can afford this. You order it. You wait in anticipation by your front door for the local jolly postman to arrive. You tear open the box like a kid at Christmas. You go out and shoot with your new camera body, and then realize, obviously, of course, it hasn't made any difference to the actual images that you end up taking once you've edited them, processed them, and you look back at the screen in front of you. And this is because, again, the gear isn't the bottleneck to leveling up your images. So why do amateur photographers make this mistake over and over again? Because both processes are going to prey on your dopamine reward pathways. And it's also because, well, it feels easy. I mean, it takes a little bit of brain energy to learn something new, to improve a skill, and to get good at photography. And of course, it takes basically no mental energy to click a button, have a bunch of dopamine flying around in your brain, and then wait for your Amazon delivery to arrive. Now, with that all said, as an amateur photographer that's been doing this for about 2 years now, the craziest thing I've found with all of this is that, well, most photographers are kind of terrible at photography. And so, to be considered pretty good, you don't actually have to be all that skilled. You don't have to learn that much to probably become the best photographer in your friend group, the best photographer in your family, and even one of, if not the best photographers in your local camera club if you're part of one of those. And so, what are the handful of skills that you need to learn to rapidly improve your photography within the next 10 minutes? What can I share with you? Well, the first thing to focus on is finding better subjects. Now, when I showed my photography coach this photo, his response was all I needed to instantly level up my photography right there in that moment. He said, no more shitty photos of a boring rock in front of a boring thing. And he was telling me that if I was going to do the cliche landscape shot of a big foreground in front of a less interesting midground and an even less interesting background, then my foreground had to be much more exciting. So the first thing to think about when improving your photography is to search, to look for, to study, to find more interesting subjects. And I think about this all the time, especially if I've got a wide angle lens on my camera and I'm looking around. And I was absolutely pumped to find this foreground, which I thought was interesting, and I raced to get it before it melted right in front of my eyes. And this was the first photograph that my photography coach said, hey, it's actually pretty decent, which was, cool to hear. That's much more rewarding than getting another piece of gear via a cardboard box via Amazon kind of arriving at my front door. And if you want to take this one step further, the best images often have a subject that tells some kind of story. For example, with this image, if the sheep wasn't up there looking out into the distance, then this image would be much weaker. I like the fact that my eye is drawn up from the rocks at the bottom of the image to the other set of rocks before I see that humble sheep looking out across the hillside, pondering her life choices. And a little side note here, have you ever seen a sheep sneeze? Well, there you go. Now you have. You are very welcome. Now, once you've found a great subject for your photo, the next most important way to 10x the quality, the level of your images is to go out there and really master the weather. So I'm a landscape photographer, and understanding the weather is obviously more important to me than perhaps a studio photographer, for example. But if you're doing any outside or nature photography, shooting in good conditions is way more important than the megapixels in your camera body or shooting with a slightly sharper lens. Let me give you another example here. Take a look at these two images. There was, as we walked up this hill, a very literal 10-20 second window of light that popped out, and obviously, wow, what a dramatic difference it has between these two images, with one has a bit of light hitting the foreground and the subject, and the other one has basically nothing. And the coolest thing is that this 10-second window of light, well, it's pretty predictable if you've got the right tools, and also those tools are completely free. So here's the first thing that I learned to improve my ability to take images in good weather. First off, general weather apps are, well, they're made for commuters, not really for photographers. They are vague on purpose because they don't want to confuse the person who's using them, and most people open a weather app because they want to know whether they need to take an umbrella out or a jacket if it's going to rain or not. We, on the other hand, us amateur photographers, we want to know how the light is actually going to behave in real time in a specific location, and that's where a couple of more advanced tools come in. Apps like Windy and Clear Outside give way more of the specific information that landscape photographers like me need to level up our photos. So for me, the process looks like this. I will check cloud cover percentages first, as the main thing that I care about when I'm either out in the field or I'm going to plan to go out somewhere, and especially around sunrise and sunset if that's when I'm going to be out doing photography. I'm looking for 30% to 70% cloud cover. That's typically the sweet spot. Too little and you're going to have a boring sky. Too much and the sky is just this grey soup of nothingness, right? But that middle range, that's where you've got the opportunity to have colour, glow, drama in the sky, and obviously chances of light popping through and hitting your subject. Then I look at the cloud layers themselves, so not just the overall coverage. High clouds are going to catch early light and can potentially create those deep warm colours during golden hours. Mid-level clouds can block sunlight, which can be good or bad depending on the type of scene that you're trying to take. And then low clouds or fog, if it's near the ground, great for atmosphere or adding a feeling of mystery, or you've got the opportunity for inversions there as well, depending on humidity and a few other factors. Then on top of these two apps, I look at satellite imagery, and I avoided this for about a year of the 2 years that I've been doing photography because it looks pretty technical. But honestly, if you take a step back and you look at it just as a series of clouds going across your location, as a time lapse of what those clouds are doing, you can literally see if breaks in the cloud where the light can get through is heading. And obviously this is super useful when you're deciding whether to wait out bad weather or pack up your stuff and go home. So that's weather. And next up, we've got something that is almost completely free and can dramatically improve your photography skills whilst increasing the amount of great images that you take, and that is learning how to shoot locally. Now, I do cover how to find amazing local landscape photography locations alongside things like picking the right subject and understanding the weather in my online training, 30-day landscape photography fundamentals. So if you're serious about leveling up your photography fast for less than the price of a camera bag, then click the link in the description to learn more. Okay, so why should we go out and be shooting local? What's the benefits to this as us as photographers who are trying to take better photos? Well, the main benefit is that it allows you to get more reps in, because as far as I can tell, the average landscape photographer goes out shooting once every 8 weeks, couple of months, every 2 or 3 months, and spends, well, a couple of hours plodding around in probably quite a nice location, but hoping that location, weather, and the skill set all line up perfectly to enable them to get that killer shot that we're all after. The problem with this is that it requires a massive amount of luck. Alternatively, if you can find somewhere local to shoot and you can go for a nice walk there, once, maybe even twice a week, well, your skills start to rapidly improve because you're taking more images. You know the location better, and so it's going to be way easier to spot interesting subjects, and you're physically in the location more, and so you're more likely to look into some great weather as well, which is going to dramatically increase your chances of getting, again, that killer shot that we're all after. And this photo is the best example that I've got of the look that comes from shooting locally, because although this looks like an amazing woodland the kind of woodland we all dream about visiting to do photography, it's actually quite a crappy bit of woodland just outside Leeds here in the UK, where I walk my dog a couple of times a week. But because I'm up there regularly, as it's only 10 minutes from my house, I noticed the bluebells starting to pop up. Then I noticed this particular falling log that I'd probably walked past countless times over the past 5 years since we've had the dog, right? And then one day there was a tiny bit of fog and the sun was low enough to create the beams of light hitting the flowers. I had my camera with me, and then boom, the photo was taken. So that then obviously begs the question, how do we find places to shoot locally? Well, I took this shot that I showed you earlier on in the video with the sheep on the rocks yesterday morning. And to find it, literally the day before, I went onto Google Maps, I turned on the satellite layer, I looked for some open access land so I could give the dog a good run about. I zoomed into the map, I started looking for and clicking on any landmarks to see if there's anything interesting that would be worth a look, something that would be an interesting subject for the photo. And often you can grab that little man that's in the corner of the screen, you can drag him about until you find a place where you can drop him, which then shows you other people's photos or 3D imaging of that specific part of the map. So I found these rocks, I thought that looks interesting, I set my alarm, I headed out, I grabbed the photo, and job done. I then add this location to the bank of my local locations that I'm going to keep visiting over and over and over until I've done them all to death. And that is how you kind of thrive as a local landscape photographer. Now, I could go on here for another 5 hours of all the things that you can learn that are going to rapidly improve the level of your photography. And if that's what you're looking for, check out my fundamentals training that's linked in the description below this video. But the point here is that gear's not going to save you. Watching more gear videos are not going to make you a better photographer. And if you want to go out and take better photos, it's probably time to learn some skills rather than learning spec sheets of cameras that you're never actually going to go and buy. And if you want to continue leveling up your photography skill set, why not click the video that's on the screen right now?